guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today for the video that I typically don't do. I don't do a lot of negative videos. I would much rather spend my time talking about books I love and like fangirling about my favorites, but I wanted to do a video of the books I DNF'd, partly because I want to push myself to DNF more to not feel like I have to finish every single book I start, because it really puts me in a bit of like a reading slump, kind of. Like, I don't want to read and I'll like force myself to read, and I don't love feeling that way. So I actually just DNF'd a book today that I was finally just like, you know what? This is not going to be a 5-star read. Not that every book I have to read is a 5-star read, but also, like, I'm not loving the story, I'm not loving the characters, and I'm only 30% in, so I can get back to it if I want to. Some of these are books I plan on maybe picking up again. One of them I'm for sure going to pick up again, but the other ones I'm just like, maybe. They're not bad, but a lot of times I'm not in the mood for them, or I just feel myself not caring about that kind of story at that time, so I put it down. So some of these are for sure like I'm not going to read them again, but some of them I might. So these are all books that I've DNF'd or did not finish, and I'll talk about why. So the first one is the one I DNF'd today, and this one was surprising to me because this one I'm reading for a reading vlog of reading your favorite books of 2022. So I had people on my Instagram write in what they loved, and I chose 4 for that video, and I read Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold. And also, like, if I'm not feeling a book and I see friends talking about it and they didn't like it either, then that kind of spurs me on to DNF it. So I was reading this, I've been reading it for like 4 days, and I'm only 30% in, which is not good for me. I read a book typically in 2 or 3 days, so this is already taking me forever to read. I'm only 30% in. It is a contemporary why choose, which I normally don't read unless it's suspense. So I typically read like paranormal fantasy why choose romances or romantic suspense why choose. I need something there to get it going. So like Tate James, I love her why choose, but there's so much action and a lot more going on to the plot. And this one, there was nothing going on with the plot. The plot was literally the relationship. And so I was pretty bored with that. It took me a while to differentiate the men as well, especially because we had their perspectives in different chapters. So I'm like, wait, who is this hero again? I really could only tell the difference with one of them, and then kind of got into the other one, and then the other one just felt like he didn't even exist. He was just like there as a placeholder character. So there are 3 guys, she was living next to them, they do a podcast about dating advice, and she crashes and burns on every one of her first dates. She's gone on 120 first dates and never had a boyfriend, and so she's asking them for help, and they're gonna like date her for their podcast to help her get dates. And then they start just dating her because I like her. The title is because they're all fake dating. So I'm 30% in, they're already sleeping together, and I'm like, but what's next? Like, they've literally just like gone on the podcast and gone on dates and slept together. And I'm just like, I don't know like what the end goal is here for 70% more, and it's like a over 500 page book, so it was going on for too long. Contemporary romances really need a lot going on in the plot if they're gonna be over 500 pages for me. So that one, I was just like, I can't read this same plot for 500 pages. So I decided to put it down, and I don't know if I'll pick it back up. I was watching Michae's video yesterday from Oh Hey It's Michae of her 1-sentence reviews on all the books she read in the year, and she read this book, and I think she gave it like 4 stars, and she said it was fine. And so I was like, do I need to continue reading this? No. So I DNF'd this one. The other one that I most recently DNF'd is really sad to me, but I also was watching someone else talk about this, and I wish I saw their video before I read this book. So that is A Broken Blade. This one is by Melissa Blair. I actually picked this up at Barnes & Noble. I'd never heard of it. It was on the book talk table, and it sounded really good. So she is like an assassin, and I love assassin characters, especially when there are heroines, and she is supposed to like go after this person. I was really excited, and I thought it was, I don't know what about it made me think it was I was trying to read the back. I feel like this was like on the book talk table with like all the romances, so like I just assumed it was a romance fantasy, but I actually have my bookmark and all the physical books I've DNF'd, so I am 263 pages into this book, but it's over 400 pages, so I have like 150 pages left, which wasn't that bad, but I just didn't care because there is like 0 romance going on. And I was watching Rachel from Raven Haired Reader. She talked about this book, and I think she like explicitly said there is like no romance in here. And she hadn't read it yet, but I think it was on her TBR, and I was like, Well, that would have been nice to know before I read this. So the whole plot was just boring. So she was trying to track down this guy who's a shadow, who's like going against the king, and then she's thinking about going against the king, and I'm just like, okay, we're just going against the king, like nothing else is happening. So I stopped reading it to read other things, and I really don't have any desire to pick it back up again. And I kind of want to take this bookmark out because it's this cute bookmark that Christy from Christy Reads a Lot sent for Christmas. Look how cute. It's from Emily Cromwell, her Etsy shop, but I was using it because I was reading this literally Christmas Eve, but then I was like, I'm bored, especially because I was reading this all in one day, and I was just like, this is going nowhere, so I'm DNFing this one. The next one is one that is a very, very hyped book talk book, and I found it incredibly too long. Again, this one was over 500 pages as a contemporary, and that is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I see this book on so many people's top books of the year, and to me, a lot of the beginning was completely unnecessary. The whole book was pitched as kind of like cutting edge, where she doesn't have a skating partner, he's a hockey player, so they're gonna skate together. That doesn't happen until like 50% into this book. I made it to about 60% before I was just like, you know what, I'm done, because the only person preventing, or the only thing preventing the couple from being together was the heroine. The heroine was training to go to the Olympics, so she was playing for her college team. It also was annoying because her partner was like so obviously a villainous character, and she was getting mad at every single person for pointing that out and refusing to believe them or see the signs, and he was literally pushing her to be unhealthy, like commenting about her weight and like what she was doing and how she was eating, and that would cause her to like not eat as well and like do these things, and it's like, he is just like not good for your health. And she was getting so mad when people pointed it out, and that just kept on going. And as a reader, it was just frustrating to see her not take a good look at what everyone was saying and like admit that. And then the hero was like so obviously in love with her, but she kept on pushing him away. But not even because she didn't like him. It's just like, she's like, I don't want to date. And I'm just like, why are we reading a book about you having to fall in love with this guy? And so I was just frustrated with a lot that was happening in the book, and we still had 40% left. And I had already read like 300 pages. So I was like, I'm good. I don't need to read the rest of this book. I did not love it, and so I wasn't gonna finish it. So 60% into this one, it just wasn't for me. Not a lot of it worked, so I stopped. So the next one is one that I do plan on going back to, and at this point it's been so long, I'm just gonna have to reread the 200 pages I already read. My bookmark is here. That is Daisy Hates. So I love Magnolia Parks. I love it. Daisy Hates is written in a very different style. We have Daisy, and it's very more like analytical, I want to say, with like literally it's written with footnotes. So the footnotes are at the bottom, and my friends even said though they like kind of skipped over the footnotes, and I feel like that's just what I need to do. And the romance in here is not as like all-consuming and just desperate as Magnolia and BJ's romance was. So this one, and also the hero in this one was in love with Magnolia, so it's hard to like want them as endgame when like the hero was in love with someone else, and now these two are taking like forever to get together. So I am enjoying like all the side characters in this one, but like I said, it's now been like 2 months since I read these 200 pages. I'm just gonna do it now. I'm gonna take my bookmark and I'm gonna put it at the front, because this reread is gonna have to happen, because I don't remember a lot that happened, especially between Daisy and the hero, whose name I don't even remember, Christian. I remember more about Julian and what's going on with him than Daisy and Christian. So this is going to be needing a reread. I just put it down though because I was not in the mood and I could not get into this romance. I definitely want to read it though, because I really need to get to book 3, and I have had people tell me just skip this book and just go read book 3 already and then come back to this when I'm ready, which I might do. Then I have Silver Flame. This one is a book that I read for Historical Hellions, and I try really, really hard to finish books that I do for book clubs because we're having a discussion about them. So I rarely DNF books for book clubs. I think for Historical Hellions I've only done it for 2 books, and one was so bad. I'm trying to find it. I think it was a Virginia Henley. We all DNF'd it. Like none of us finished it. We all hated it. But this one, I can't even tell you what the plot was actually. I don't remember anything I read. and I didn't write a review on it because I think I DNF'd it pretty early on. I think the writing was really hard for me to get into. Sometimes with old school historicals, it's really like clunky and over descriptive writing, and the descriptions like don't matter. That's especially what the Virginia Henley was like too, and I was just like, this is taking me forever just to digest, and that's what happened with this one. And I remember like not a lot happened in what I read. I didn't really care about the characters and what they were going through, so I stopped reading it. And I don't remember if everyone else finished this one in our book club discussion, but I think this is the only one this year that I ended up DNFing, but we typically have pretty good picks, so I was disappointed in this one, and I was not mad though when I stopped reading because I was like, I'm not missing out on anything. The next one I think is a pretty polarizing thriller. This is the only non-romance I have on this list, and this one I actually got an ARC of, and I was really excited to read it because a lot of people really love this author, and I love this author's previous book, so I was very excited. And it had to do with cults, which I love, but that is The Last Housewife. I read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. That's one of my favorite thrillers of the year, but this one, I only have about 100 pages left, so I don't know if I just want to go ahead and finish that at some point and like power through those last 100 pages. But for this one, it was hard for me to read because it does have to do with a sex cult, which I have read romances that have to do with that, but I was analyzing what was different about this. As a thriller, why was that different for me than in a romance? And that's because in a romance, there is a happy ending for our character, and I know whoever was in that situation is going to get out of it, and they're going to find their soulmate and fall in love and get their happily ever after. They're going to heal emotionally. Like what I'm thinking of is the Hades Hangman series by Tilly Cole. All of the females in that series escaped from a religious sex cult, and they were horribly treated, assaulted from a very young age, and finally escaping, and they emotionally are traumatized and heal and go through a long process of healing with the heroes. And in this one, there's no romance to give me that hope. So in this one, it was about a girl who was in a sex cult, and we keep on seeing these flashbacks to when she was, and now in the present she is, and she was just making really not smart decisions. And I don't like reading thrillers where the plot banks on the characters making not smart decisions that you're like, why are you putting yourself in this situation? Like, obviously that's not smart. Obviously it's gonna be dangerous. Like, why are you doing that? And so that's what the main character was doing in here. She kept on putting herself like back into the sex cult and in their like environment, and I'm like, you've already been through this once and barely escaped. Like, why are you doing this again? And so I don't know, like, I don't know if there's gonna be like a huge twist or anything, and I don't know if I care enough to go in and continue reading that, because I've seen some people really love this, but I've also seen some people really not like it. So I don't know what I want to do, but I stopped reading it and have had no desire to pick it up since then. And the last one I want to talk about is actually a series that I DNF'd, and I don't remember if I started book 3 yet. I don't think I did, but book 2 I pretty much skimmed the end, so it's pretty much a DNF'd. It was like a soft DNF'd because I didn't actually stop reading it, but I did not take the time to like really thoroughly read it. And that's the Broken Bond series by J. Bree. This is a series my friends and I did a read along for because we had seen so many of our friends love this series, and it's Why Choose Paranormal, and I was like, yes please, I love that. I just think J. Bree might not be the author for me because it's mostly new adult, and I just don't read that a lot anymore. I read one by J. Bree that took place in high school, and I did not like it. In this series, there was just like too many plot holes that were continuously not explained. The romance was very, very slowly developed, that even by book 2, we had barely any development with her and any of the men, and there were all these secrets about her past, and then all of a sudden all these people were trying to kidnap her, and then she was getting out of it, and then she had powers, and we're figuring all these stuff out, and it was just a lot. And these books are long, like they get longer as the series goes on too, and I had a lot of other things to read, and I was like, if I'm not like dying to get to the rest of the series and I'm dreading picking it up because it's gonna be like a 600-page book with even more questions and no answers, I should not read it. So I DNF'd the series, and I'm not planning on picking it back up. It just wasn't for me. So I feel like a lot of the books I end up DNFing are really, really long books that I'm just like, I don't have the time or patience to sit through the rest of this. So that was the last one I have to share that I DNF'd. Let me know, what are some books that you've DNF'd? Are you someone who does DNF books, or are you someone like me who feels like they have to finish everything they read? I'm trying to be better at that in 2023. I really, really want to be better, but it's hard. I feel like it's wasted time if I don't finish a book, then I can't count it as read. And it's not even about like reading as a competition. It's just about me personally. Like, why did I spend 3 hours on this book when it's not going to be adding it to anything? It's not going to be able to be shared with anybody. Like, it's just like, I didn't finish. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on DNFing. I would love to hear. Let me know your thoughts on these books, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.